happy Wednesday to you. Hope you all are having a great day and a wonderful week. Welcome to Midnight Hatter Live, the weekly variety show where we talk Gundam, Gunpla, and gaming. I am Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, your host, and joining me as always, the Gundam explainer, Blue Gamer, Adam Blue. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing good. Yeah, glad to meet up again to talk some more. GQX has been interesting with the Zeta stuff because that's what we're into.
Yes.
But what is it going to? Are we gonna have a mutual interest in or not?
Maybe so, maybe not. I don't know. Tonight will definitely be one of the shows that we've ever done.
Oh, I like that.
No, I feel bad because there's not a whole lot that I personally have gotten up to in the last week. It's been kind of a hectic week, so
Yeah.
any kind of project progress has been slow. But I do have a couple things that I'm going to share with you guys before we get into tonight's main topics, which are, of course, SD Gundam things, which I know you're not a big fan of, but it's my show. We can talk about other stuff tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
um, and then we've got some GQuX stuff. Obviously, we'll save the spoilery talk for the end, but there is some relevant GQuX content that I want to discuss before we get into talking about last yesterday's episode. So first and foremost, some news. Obviously. Uh, it's the first show of the month, which means that Patreon perk went out earlier, which actually, let me go ahead and let me screen share this with you guys so that I can show you what exactly is going on. This is probably the most I've been able to get done as far as projects go. And it's more of like a part one of an ongoing project that I've got going on. So what I have done here is, I took to Blender and made a SD cross silhouette compatible inner frame for, the SD Gunpla. I'm a big fan of that line because, like, obviously it's very modular. I have both the Zeta and the Zaku, and of course, the Zaku head fits on the Zeta Gundam so that you can recreate some 0088 shenanigans. But it comes with two different um the cross silhouette line, I should say, comes with like two different form factors, right? You have like the typical SD, which is like the short, chonky guys, and then
Yeah.
you have this slightly elongated. It almost is reminiscent of like SD Battle Alliance.
Yeah. Better proportions. These are more along the lines of things I like. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so what I'm working on here is we're making a articulated version. So like obviously the SD version, it doesn't have any arm like bicep bend, doesn't have any knee bend. This version does. And in addition to that, one of the things that I want to do is start incorporating some more inner frame designs. So I want to put like some inner mechanics on it, like some coolant pipes and hydraulics and stuff like that to make it
Oh
look
yeah.
more like an SD master grade. When you take the armor plating off, like what's it going to look like, right?
Yeah.
So
Make that part
again,
of
this is
the
okay.
process, like, if you wanted to customize the piping and all that, you could? Yeah,
Exactly. So that
I
then
like
you can have like a full interior model as opposed to just kind of like basically a high grade is what these guys come out to. Um, but then one of the other things that drove me nuts about this line is there's very little care, I think, given to the specific mobile suits that are chosen for the line. I think we've got like the Siskidae, that Titans
Oh, yeah. The
Gundam with the mono eye,
Model Y, yeah.
Gundam ground type here, obviously. Um, let's see, there's the Zeta Zaku 2. There's a Zaku 1 add-on kit that you can make a Zaku 1, but it's unpainted, so that kinda sucks. Um,
And I know this is blasphemous, but the Mighty Strike Freedom.
can't get enough Strike, can we?
And that was a cool one, but I like all that gold, so maybe that's
It
what
is
it
a
was.
cool one. Yeah, I'll give you that. But, what I thought was interesting is that they really don't have a lot of the rival mobile suits. Have you noticed that? Where it's like, yeah, you have the Gundam and you have Char Zaku too, but, like, you have the Gundam ground type, but no goof.
Right, okay, so and isn't it like where it's like the NX Edge we were talking about, or the more, like, detailed versions of this? Whereas
Yeah,
the NX Edge had, like, for instance, the Nightingale and the Hainu.
exactly. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, with this yeah, exactly, yeah, the goof,
Yeah, you need some pairs, right?
Or the Zaku 2, F2 or FZ, whatever they call
So,
that.
yeah, like, I've got my Zeta, but there's no Cubalay, there's no O, there's no so my
Whoa,
first thought
a
was, like,
Cubalay in OSD would actually look really cool.
it'd be fantastic, right? You know
That's
what? I probably should have started with them instead of doing what I was doing, which is, of
Oh,
course
no, 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 that looks cool because that's the proportions on that are awesome.
oh, yeah, and to me, the Bawu represents, like, what I would consider the anti-Zeta, like, even though
Okay.
the O and the Cubalay are, like, villain suits and, I mean, yes, the Bawu is a villain suit too, but it's, like, proportionally, it's identical to the Zeta, functionally, it's identical to the Zeta, it's like
And it's red,
it's
you know?
red, it's it's like the Dark Link
Yeah,
of the
I
Zeta
like
Gundam.
that. I like that explanation.
Yeah, it's the inverse, the opposite, it's the Waluigi, so that's
The
why I love
Waluigi,
it so
yeah, there
much.
you go. You got the
I'm
yellow
gonna
one there.
just keep rattling them off. So, that's one of my first projects is gonna be adapting the Bawu into the SDCS line, and then, of course, I think that we should go big, right? Go big or go
Dude,
home. Uh, I think that we can make some pretty cool stuff like the Psycho Gundam, and then, oh, I don't have an image of it, bummer. Um, I'm also working on a SD Queen Mantha, so
oh, okay. Yeah, I think I saw something of that before. Maybe it was on on the Discord, your Discord.
I'm sure
Um,
I posted it somewhere, but yeah.
so that can you go back up to that, Psycho Gundam?
Oh, yeah.
This thing looks so cool. You know what else so with this model, like the proportions, I love it. If you were to able to, like, print it to be like one of those vinyl, those soft
Oh,
vinyl
yeah.
that the way it looks, the colors proportion, dude, that would be a cool limited art release or something to have different colors.
I've been looking into that because, Craftsman has, like he's been doing, like, that Sofubi, like, that
Mhm.
soft vinyl toy thing where I don't it's not like an injection mold per se, but, I mean,
Yeah, I don't
there's
know.
a there's an art to it, and it is possible to make them at home, so, um,
Okay, because yeah, that's the vibe I get when I look at that.
yeah,
Like, but
so
and I'm sorry to cut you off
oh,
again
no,
because
go ahead.
this is really cool. So then have you already then measured or thought the scaling proportion of that versus,
I'm
the
glad you asked
okay.
because one of the things that's interesting about these is like obviously the scale is increased, but I don't think that that means you need a different frame per se because there are models in the SDCS line that don't quite follow the same proportions as like the existing line. They
Oh,
just
okay.
really they have like modifier parts. I'll say it that way. So
Oh,
what I'm thinking is when it comes to this, the frame is going to be the exact same, but there's probably going to be like extender parts that will be added on to give it the extra height and so like this is the torso and the pelvis of my SDCS frame 3D printed.
wow.
I was doing some test fitting
Dude.
earlier. Here's a pelvis that is actually I actually put it inside of the Zaku skirt to, test fit it with actual SDCS parts. Similarly, here is the interior of the Zeta. I'm sure you guys probably can't even see this stuff.
No, it's no, it's oh, make as a screen share, yeah.
So, like, this is the foot and the interior of the Zeta leg, where the interior leg is clipped in. And yeah, I mean, there's like a little hinge joint here at the knee, which allows it that extra articulation.
Oh,
Um,
for the
And of
hip
course, it doesn't help that the print is like this clear color that that I've been using. So
oh,
there are
well,
some settings that I still need to dial in, and that actually brings me to my hobby tip of the week. Is let me hop back into the screen share because I posted these things on the Patreon page, but I want to share it with like all of you guys. Is the things that I've learned in the Chitu box slicer that I use for preparing a 3D print file to actually go onto onto the printer. Um, these are like your typical settings where it's like you got your layer height, you got your layer count, like the bottom layer count, like how many layers qualify as the bottom, exposure time per layer, and then like bottom exposure time. So like you usually expose the bottom layer a lot longer than you would. Typically, it's about 4 times the amount of time that you would expose the normal layers because you really want it to stick to the build plate and hold firm, and then, like, as you get further up, you don't really wanna overexpose it, so, um, there are a couple settings in here that I found interesting. So there's this light off delay, which this is a it's like a built-in setting that is specifically geared around transparent resins. Now, I have used a lot of transparent resins in my day, and I've always had terrible, terrible luck with them. They usually like bubble up and like look terrible, and the supports are really hard to take off. And a lot of that just comes from the fact that the light from the resin printer would refract in on itself and it would overexpose the resin around it. So what this setting does is it actually introduces a delay in between the layers printing, where instead of going like 2 seconds up, 2 seconds up, 2 seconds, it's going to go 2 seconds up, drop down, and then it's going to hold there for a second. Well, in this case, 1.75 seconds, and then it'll expose it. And the reason it does this is it allows the resin time to cool down between layers, which normally you wouldn't necessarily want because like warm resin adheres better. And so it's like you want hot resin to in order to get like better um it's to avoid shearing, like avoid the resin pulling apart. But in this case, because you're exposing the light through multiple layers of resin, you don't want it to heat up like that. So interesting setting there. Additionally, this is a new setting that is available in like the standard version of Cheeto Box. I don't know if it's been available in the Pro version for a while, but tolerance compensation, which this actually allows you to, after you've actually exported your file, to go in and adjust the amount of like space you want between joints, which is important for parts like these that are going to have to fit together. And so, like, you have control over the inner and outer, uh, you know, inner and outer perimeter of your model, which is kind of interesting. I haven't dialed in these settings quite yet, and some of these parts are not quite fitting together the way I need them to. So I will let you guys know how
Mm,
this goes.
yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, fascinating stuff, I'm sure. But yeah, so with that in mind, I didn't really get into a whole lot project wise. I haven't been able to work on the Queen Mantha, haven't been able to work on like the V8, but I did do something interesting. So like I mentioned with the SDCS line, there are certain models that don't use the same frame exactly, and one of those happens to be the Calibarn, the Witch from Mercury kit, because instead of having like kind of like the way that the Zeta looks, it's got like that fat lower leg. It's got big calves and like tiny, tiny hips.
Yeah.
The Ariel, the Calibarn, those are kind of the inverse, where it's like they've got skinny little legs and they've got like fat hips. And so they kind of like the parts don't quite fit together. And so it comes with like different conversion parts to make that work. And so
Mm,
that said, I
really?
did start building that this week with the help of a tiny assistant here. These are clips from the video that I'm going to attach to this project. But yeah, this is my daughter helping me assemble the Calibarn. Here's the
That's
head
awesome.
that we put together last night. She was very proud of it. So
Aw,
say what you
that
will, I'm indoctrinating her early.
no, that's a really cool activity to be doing.
Yeah, and so, don't worry, she didn't hold any of the hobby knives, she didn't hold any of the, nippers, she was just assembling.
Aw, that's so cool.
But yeah, whenever I can find time and excuses to drag my kids into what I do for a living, it's always fun.
Yeah, it is. I know, early on, like, when on Blue Gamer, I'd include them on some of the videos, and then over time, they just didn't wanna be anymore because at first it was just kinda fun to do, and then over time, it's like, "Ah, dad's doing his thing," and
"Dad, you're kinda lame.
yeah, exactly, and,
Why aren't you PewDiePie already?"
yeah, yeah, that's hilarious because yeah, it is interesting how it's just the other interesting thing is just how and it makes sense how different they are, or in terms of the things they're into compared to
Yeah.
me. It really even the video games, it's different video games, you know? different movies, different stuff. Yeah.
For sure, man, you cannot raise little copies of yourself no matter how hard you try.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm glad you brought up, like, the idea of video game well, before we get into video games, actually, I wanted to ask you, like, because obviously I haven't actually had a chance to catch up on your videos this week, aside from the one
Oh.
on Monday. I did watch that one because, I've been keeping up with the Ghost in the Frame series.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but what have you gotten into this week?
Yeah, that's true. I'm glad you asked. I always forget the videos. Yeah, I had the review up for the Gabaldi,
Mm,
Robot Spirits, because again, I love that we're getting these Zeta ver anime. And the Gabaldi is something I probably would never bother buying a model kit of,
no.
but there's something about that I'm buying, the finished, the premium action figure to
Right.
go along with my collection. It makes more sense that way.
Yeah.
Uh,
It really
yeah,
is like a diet Gelgoog, isn't it?
yeah, it is. To me, it just seems like Xeon fodder. Like, it just
Yeah.
looks like a Xeon, just a random Xeon suit. Okay, it's got some sort of snout and pipes, and it's
Snout and pipes, that's
little curves here and there. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I feel like that describes a Xeon suit. But the other thing too was, um, it was so fun. Even the other video that came out this week, it was the Gundam Development Project explained, because I every once in a while it will just come to me where it's like, okay, yeah, what was this again? How did it go? Because I was thinking, oh yeah, UC Engage had that new, suit that they're saying is like would have been part of that line or whatever. So it's like, okay, I'll do a little
GPO
refresh.
1.5.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, oh, I'll just do a little refresher um on that. Yeah, and yeah, that's about it. So I got that Zaku Police
Yeah.
uh high grade, and that I just don't have time, but that I wanna have built so I can then do a review of. And actually, I'm looking forward to building it because I'm looking forward to, and this is what I seem like I've been getting into, is finding the details that make it more accurate to the anime or whatever, you know? Um,
I definitely need to send you that, video. I should have had it queued up. There's a guy that built the police Zaku on Twitter that, designed it with LEDs. Of
I
course,
saw
me,
that.
that's
No,
and
but
it's
I
like
saw it where they
yeah.
had the metal pipe or tubing or whatever for
Yeah.
the shoulder. Yeah, I saw that.
And yeah, the alternating flickering shoulders, very cool stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
that
sure I
is.
posted in the Discord if nothing else. But
Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned, yeah, the GP project because obviously, like you said, it was in UC Engage. It was also in SD Eternal. So like,
Oh, yeah.
so that's gonna be obviously like what I've been into. Again, holding the baby, bouncing around on the, Pilates ball, walking around, like, there's only so much time that I can put into Seed Destiny. I still have not beaten it, but I have been maining the Dual Gundam. That's been my, like, sweet
Oh,
spot,
cool.
and I, like, maxed out the mobility specs because, that's been my play style for Battle Destiny is, like, I put everything into melee and into speed so that I can just like close gaps, beam saber, and be done with it. What is your play style when it comes to Battle Destiny?
That's a good question. I like playing it as a mix where it's like I have all the different weapons. I can kind of go in and do action, because even if I am charging up my special, I'm not like using it all the time, because sometimes it's just a quick way to, like, I really like the whole button mashing aspect of, but really like doing a combo and then shooting and then, so like, having the strike freedom has been the most fun, but I did enjoy some of the earlier suits that were slower, like, when I was
Yeah,
starting the game, because it just had more of that feel to it, more of that mobile suit feel
yeah,
to
the
it.
Gin just kind of like,
Yeah, yeah,
the animation in the game is fantastic. Like I haven't
it
noticed a
is.
ton of clipping, despite being an older game. There is I did notice this actually is the this might be like inside baseball,
Okay.
but the character controller is definitely like a physics-based character controller, and the animations are not tied to the character controller. And what I mean by that is, and what I want you to do is, Adam, you're going to see this the next time you play. I promise. Is
Okay.
because when you boost. and then your mobile suit lands, what you're going to notice is that you can control the mobile suit for a split second and it won't be running, but it will be gliding across the ground. And it's because the animation for running hasn't started yet, but you are on the ground and the physics are still enabled so you can move. So, especially like I said, with the dual Gundam, I'm doing a lot of boosting around and jumping, and so what'll happen is like I boost towards somebody and then I'm like skating for about maybe half a second before the animation kicks in and I start running.
Oh, and so I guess by timing that, are you able to kinda use that in play?
Yeah, I mean, it just knowing that inertia is always like in on your side basically. Like you're never going to have that thing where you jump and then you stop and you're like stuck in place while you kind of regain your traction.
Yeah, that's right. I see what you're saying, yeah, because that's what kinda really speeds it up. Again, it's fun, and it's fun to play fast, but, the slower stuff is a little more up my alley, I guess.
Yeah.
Wait, so have you beaten it, right?
No, no, I haven't yet. Yeah. Um
You're playing more Eternal just because it's easier to be playing Eternal.
exactly. I can
Okay,
one-hand Eternal. I can't
yeah.
one-hand the
Wait, so
Switch.
in Eternal, did you beat those new Stardust memory
Man,
missions?
I am so glad you mentioned that
Okay,
because, like I was gonna say, yeah, obviously, I've got my phone up here so we can actually like they've got the event going on,
yeah,
and this is one of the things that I want to praise Eternal with is that they have a lot going on, in terms of banner suits, events, and bonus gifts that all
yeah,
tie into current promotions that are going on. Some of them are like stuff that's just like there's nothing 0083 going on per se, but they're like,
right,
okay, we're gonna do an event. We're gonna do a story event for 0083, and so yeah, the banner suit is the GPO2, but they also have Char's Origin Zaku as a banner suit,
yeah,
totally unrelated to 0083. So like, there's still a reason for you to sign in and play, even if you're not a Stardust Memory fan, which I think is cool. In addition to that, if you're into GQX, just this past Tuesday, because of the new episode, they gave everybody due Murasame. So like not
mm,
four, but two.
yeah,
They gave everybody two Murasame, and then like in the Scout feature, you could actually get Gates Kappa. Which shout out to Guard Captain on Twitter. Like when SD Eternal posted that on Twitter, I was like, "How are you going to give us due and not give us Gates Kappa?" And he was like, "Oh, you have to pay for Gates Kappa." And I was like, "Oh, well, shoot,
wow.
of course."
Yeah, you're right, they really are just throwing out and you know what? The Origin, Char Zaku 2 Origin, that's
Yeah.
also the toy in Target right now, the exclusive Gundam
It's the
Universe.
origin color.
Yeah, that's really neat that they are doing this.
So I do wanna stress that, like, this stuff is really and again, I haven't paid for anything, in this game, but I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it. I have basically maxed out everything from these are all the mobile suits that I have from the Stardust Memory event. So, just with the 3,000 diamonds that they gave as a gift, I pulled both 1 Origin Zaku and 1 GPO2. So I got both of
Uh,
the EX models.
I didn't
I
get any of
didn't
those.
get them.
No, I know.
Well, all the same, I did manage to limit break both the Valwalo and the GPO1 full burner. I fully limit broke the GPO2 that's in that set. Um,
Dude,
so
I'm glad you're getting time in on this game. I'm glad someone is.
I it will and I really like the structure of like the story events and the way that they're doing everything. Again, what I'm getting at here is I know that like these types of tactics games are not everybody's bag. But one of the critiques that I always have with any franchise that's going on is like, how are you tying in all of the different properties that you have going on at any given time to this one thing that you have on the market?
Right.
Especially something like this, where it's a gotcha, where it's like a a freemium model. Um, things like when the Avengers game was out, like how often were they releasing skins that were related to the shows that were on Disney Plus at the time or related to the movies that were in theaters at the time? Sometimes they did, sometimes they were very thoughtful about it, sometimes not so much. But what I like about this is that there's lots of different avenues that they're using where, maybe the banner suit has to do with the event, but maybe not. Like, maybe the gift has to do with GQX, but maybe it doesn't. So it's like, you might say like, all right, if we're gonna have like a new Seed series come out, then maybe the banner suit is gonna be a Seed mobile suit, but maybe the story event is gonna be something you see, and then maybe you get a gift that is something, I don't know,
Yeah.
IBO. It it allows them flexibility to promote multiple things all in one channel, all in one place.
Dude, yeah, it's I think, for as much as we criticize Bandai, this is probably the ultimate marketing tool and the way to do it, just because the backbone of the game is gameplay we all approve of, like, as gamers, like, it respects your time. If you wanna sit there and have fun strategizing on a map, it's fun as heck. Um, but yeah, just I love hearing how you play through it and you don't have to dump money into it and you can still have all this fun and they have all these events and they're tying things. So I can't wait for like, okay, what is a dream event that they could have
That's a
for it?
good question. I guess Char's counterattack would be the obvious answer.
But I guess that okay, so let me ask one that doesn't seem like it would be obvious.
Really?
No, I'm asking, what's some one that you because I feel like Shark's Counterattack, we're gonna get that soon.
Oh yeah.
I like, for instance, Requiem for Vengeance.
That's dude, you're in my head because I
Okay.
definitely was like, okay, what if they gave us Requiem for Vengeance? First of all, I don't think we've ever seen an SD Requiem for Vengeance suit like ever
So, they have the, Mobile Suit Ensemble that comes out in August, I have it pre-ordered. So, they
uh,
have them in that
in that
th
scale.
yeah, in that scale, yeah. Because that would be a good one because of the suits.
Yeah.
Because the option you would even have the GM, the Guff custom. I mean, that would be a lot of good suits. Seeing, I like that too because it's almost like a cross media style thing.
Yeah, well, and the
Mm,
cool thing about it is they can do the same sort of thing that they've been doing where, they have a tag system for all of the mobile suits where, I don't know if you knew about, like, the new Eternal Road stages where, instead of doing 0083, like, exclusive Eternal Road stages, they have 2 stages. One is where you fight the GPO2, the other one's where you fight the GPO1, and one you have to use all protagonist suits and the other one is you have to use
mm,
all rival suits. And so like one of them it's like you have to use the Gundam and like the Zeta, the
yeah,
Freedom. The other one it's like, oh, it's my Justice, it's the Zazabi, it's like those suits. And so it allows you to create unique challenges for players that are outside of just like, oh, it's got to be UC or oh, it's got to be like this.
yeah,
It's
I
like
like that.
I think that that's pretty cool. And so on that note, again, one of the things that they're doing with the 0083 is that you get bonus rewards when you use either suits from 0083 or from the 1 Year War. And so that Banner Origin Zaku suit, like, even though it's not directly related to the 0083 event, you still get bonus rewards for using it in the event.
Wow.
So you could do the same thing with Requiem for Vengeance, where it's like
Yeah,
maybe you have a storyline that's 8th MS team, but one of the banner suits is the Gundam EX.
yeah, exactly. Because yeah, they would die in. Yeah, and I think, yeah, that would be fun, and then even going, like, if they did Gundam Sentinel,
Yeah.
something I feel like it could get very fun, especially because and just is just more of a personal take. I enjoy playing it, so if they're giving me, like, a story I've always kinda wanted to follow in a form like that, like
Yeah.
Sentinel, that would be a cool way to enjoy the story. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see more of that where it's like we have a lot of these obscure stories, like Sentinel being just like a photo novel, and not a lot of people have had access to that story, and it's never been fully adapted to a video game. You can use the units in video games, but it's not like they're in the story mode. Not even G Generation Genesis, which has like a lot of like,
yeah,
they have Lost War Chronicles is one of the story modes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would love a Sentinel story mode.
yeah. And I think and I'm bringing that up just because of the Seed recollection.
Yeah.
Unless with Seed, they just market that completely differently, and it's like, "Oh, we can just make up new stories all the time," I don't know.
Well, one of the first events that they had was the Ashtray event, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
so
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, unless it's just because it's seed, there's already examples of them using things from those sources, so.
yeah, and I know that they're gonna have, like, Freedom and Destiny and eventually.
Which,
Oh,
by
there
the
you
way,
go.
Gundam Universe, yeah, Red Frame, yeah.
But yeah, the only thing that I think could make it better would be if it were like a console game that was like a third person action instead of a tactics game. Like I appreciate the tactics game because it's mobile friendly because I can,
Yeah,
I can one hand play it
I love that.
while I'm watching my kids. But yeah, it's like I want a more proper gameplay experience, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing with as much fun as I'm having with Battle Destiny, that's not necessarily,
It's
it's
not scratching
funny.
that itch.
Yeah, I'll probably talk about this more, tomorrow, but I jumped back into Front Mission Evolved. I think that came out in, like, 2011 or something, I forget. Um,
Yeah.
2009, I don't know, but, I was able to beat it again on PC, and I was like, "You know what? That game still is still good, like, compared to Battle Destiny." It feels more mechy, and skating around feels more risk versus reward, like, having to manage my meter and all that, and then I was playing alongside Armored Core. And I was like, "No, Front Missions Evolved still is good for all the crap it would get." So,
Well, there you go. I haven't tried any of the Front Mission games, so I might have to try out Evolve. I know that Evolve's different than, like, the
yeah,
standard Front Mission
it's
games,
the only
so
one that's like that, and it's pretty neat. Yeah.
and, I think that that's kind of a lot of mech games typically will have that identity crisis because, is it gonna be a mech simulator where there's a lot of deliberate actions and it's slow and methodical, or is it gonna be something that's, like, zippy and you can do those kind of combos? Honestly, when you were describing Battle Destiny, I almost wish that there was a Gundam game that had the same sort of fluid combat as, like, Fable, because the way that Fable's combat works, where you can flow seamlessly from melee into ranged into, like, your special attacks,
Yeah.
um, that was always really cool, and it had that I don't even know what you call that targeting system, but, like, the same type of targeting system that's, like, in the Witcher games, where it's not like a strict targeting where you, like, lock on, but your character is sort of guided towards
Oh,
whatever
like
direction
soft
you're
targeting?
facing.
I think
Yeah,
it's something
is
like
it
that.
soft targeting? Is that, like,
I
the official
Yeah, where it's just kinda like if you're in that proximity, it kinda locks to them until you move. Do the Arkham games do that?
The Arkham games, I think, are a little bit more aggressive because one of the
Yeah.
things that drives me nuts about the Arkham games is, like, you'll be fighting somebody over here, and then if you turn
Oh,
just
yeah.
slightly, you, like, leap across the room and go hit somebody. I kinda
Yeah.
like it where it's not as jarring as that, where,
Right.
like, The Witcher, he like, Geralt's not, like, gonna cross a room to go fight somebody. If you turn around, you're probably gonna get hit in the back.
Yeah.
Um, and it's the same thing with, like, Fable, where it's like, you really have to time out where you're gonna turn and things like that, especially, like, all of those games employ, the battle circle AI, where enemies will encircle you, and then they kind of take turns taking pot shots at you, which is it's fair to the player because obviously you don't wanna be, like, stun locked by a
Yeah,
gang of guys.
multiple, yeah.
But, but it's cool because then you can kind of feel like a badass because you're sitting there, like, dueling somebody with a sword, and then you turn around and, like, pull a gun and just quickly snap. That's something you can't do in a game like GBO2, which, like, obviously there's cooldowns between
Yeah,
switching weapons, and even in Battle Destiny, there's, like, a little bit of an animation delay when you're switching
right.
from your melee or when you're switching
There is.
between your 2 ranged combat, weapons. So, like, yeah, I don't know, what do you prefer? Do you prefer something a little bit more mech simmy like that, where it's deliberate and slow, or do you prefer something that's a little bit more like Seed?
You know, I like games so that's the thing with the Gundam Seed game, I just like games that play like that. So I think that's why I got into it and it was Seed, but because it played like that, I liked it as a game. But I think the best example I can keep going back to is, Rise of the Ashes or Rise from the Ashes. Um,
Yeah.
um, Side Stories 0079 on the Dreamcast. The way that felt because it was first person in the mech, but if you knew what you were doing, it could be pretty quick to get to where you want, and so by the time you're near the end of the game, you feel so cool in it, and I mean, I like being able to look at my mech. I wouldn't mind, yeah, I bet they could figure out a way to make it third person and still have that feel, definitely.
I think so. Yeah.
I think that's key, and here's another kind of example I think you'd appreciate is, so I was playing Death Stranding, and
Okay.
the the feeling of moving the character is exactly like the feeling of moving Metal Gear Solid 5, you know, the that, and you were even bringing it up when you were talking about Sea Destinies, that character controller. They just
Yeah.
need to nail that feeling, and it's about momentum. You know,
Exactly.
it's they need to nail the animation, the feel of the movement, and that sells it a lot because there are some certain, for certain mobile suits in Sea Destiny, their beam saber animation looks really cool because there's like a little wind up, and
Yeah.
you almost see, and it's very fluid and you really feel engaged. Yeah.
Now, that said, I wish that there was more of, like, I really liked this in, like, the Gundam Versus games, the older ones, is, like, the special type of attack, oh, hey, thank you for the follow, appreciate it. The special type of attack where, for instance, with, like, the Zeta Gundam, there was, like, a special move where it would have like a beam saber like swipe with the leg and then you flip over the back and it's like it's a scripted
Yeah.
animation. But those types of things, like, it just enhances the game a little bit. That's one of the reasons that, like, The Witcher has like the execution type moves where it's like, you might have regular sword swipes and then every so often there's going to be a random, like, he's going to turn somebody around and cut their head off, something like that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff definitely, enhances the gameplay, but, yeah, I always go back to it is, like you said, traversal and a solid character controller is the defining characteristic of the best games. Like, if it doesn't feel good to move your character around, there's nothing else in the game that's gonna make it better.
Right. Yeah.
Now
It's
that said, there is a matter of taste to that too because,
true.
like you said, with something like with Armored Core, obviously there's a lot of like zipping around and floating
Yeah.
and skating and that sort of motion. Um, but some people don't like that. So,
Yeah.
you
Which
know,
is funny, like, that's not my preferred method of mech combat, but
yeah.
it's fun in the games to do, you know? So that, yeah, that's why it's fun to play it, but yeah, but, and sometimes it works. It's interesting because thinking about how it is in Armored Core Verse when we're playing, like GBO2 when we're in the DOMs and
Mhm.
how they work, because I feel like it's, um yeah, what is the difference with an Armored Core? Here's the difference, in Armored Core, when you can't really just walk with your mech.
Right.
You're only really doing that if you're kinda, like, looking around and in your air, but you're normally just zipping.
Yeah.
Whereas, the idea with the Gundam style mech and then how they're portrayed in the video games is there's that movement. Even if Adam is skating, it still feels like it's within that, uh, movement.
Well, I think that the ultimate way to handle that is to always just build in those limitations where it's like if there's a thruster gauge where you can burn out your thruster gauge and you have to time it appropriately. Like obviously they have that, but you can time it to where you like basically never have to slow down. Whereas in like GBO2 or even just like I mean name any third person game. Like you could look at Control, where it's like you can do like cool dash moves in Control, and that's not even a mech game. But like
Yeah,
obviously you have your skill meter, power meter. I don't know how she measures it, but the idea is like it's a limited resource that you have to keep an eye on. And so if you have a thruster gauge, I think it's cool that DOMs can zip around and stuff like that. Like, but it has to be limited to a limited operation and operation time is going to allow you to feel much more in control and tactical about doing
yeah.
that as opposed to just I'm just going to spam my thrusters like it's not a big deal.
Exactly. It reminds me of those mecha games you play every once in a while where you might have the quad legs or whatever, and so you're actually playing different because the loadout is different. And
Yeah.
yeah, Gundam, I don't think they've ever really portrayed that with the mobile suits in that way in a Gundam game, right? Where And I'm thinking because like operating a Dom or like, the surface type versus
Yeah.
operating a ground Gundam, you would feel like the control and operation would be different potentially. But
It would be interesting if there were, like, different control schemes associated with different mobile suits in that
yeah.
way, where, like, I was thinking about this when I was playing, Battle Destiny, is it drives me insane because one of my favorite things to do when I'm coming up to attack an enemy is I use my thruster, I boost towards them, and then I like to jump up and boost in the air and come down with a sword strike,
Oh yeah.
instead of going straight at them and doing it. So the problem with that is that you have to come to a stop before you can tap the thrust button to jump up because it's not two different buttons. If thrusting and jumping were two different buttons, I could hold forward on the directional, on the left stick, boost forward, tap a different button to jump up, and not have to let go of the directions. In the current control scheme, it's like I boost forward, I have to stop, then jump up, then I can boost forward again and execute the move that I'm trying to do. Um, and I promise I have a I'm going somewhere with this, is like you said, different mobile suits would operate differently. And so what if for some mobile suits, the thrust button is the same as the jump button, where that is a limiting
Yeah.
factor. You have to come to a stop before you can jump up. But with things like the Surface type or the Dom, they have 2 different buttons to operate that so that then you can do your zippy skating and then jump up and, like, it gives you a much more fluid experience.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking of if a game just on a basic level, it was a bunch of Zaku's versus GMs, and depending on if you were in a GM or Zaku, the controls were different. Like just at that level,
Yeah.
it would be cool. Because what if someone's faithful to Xeon because they just like the controls and they're just down with how that controls? I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I
no,
mean, even something as simple as, like, swapping the north and west buttons where it's like, on a Zaku, your square/X is
oh,
your heat hawk, and Y/triangle would be your ranged weapon, your machine gun. But in a GM, it's reversed, where
or
square/X is your beam spray gun, and
or it's
you
completely different, and it's
or
a
totally
whole
different, yeah.
different weapon system where yeah, I don't know, like but see, that's the type of stuff that would be fun, for them to explore more, but, you know,
Gamers hate these guys because of because of
I
these stupid mechanics they came up with.
no, let's just see, yeah, I so and as far as I know, right now, there is no Gundam game that's been announced that's unreleased. Because we
Not
had
to my
SD
knowledge.
Eternal for a while we were waiting for, remember? And then, Gundam Breaker 4, and then yeah, so what is the next Gundam game that is being made right now?
That's a good question. And we talked about this last week on your show is like why Battle Destiny, right? Like why is it Switch exclusive, technically because obviously it's on Steam, but like why is it Switch console exclusive? Why remake that game out of every game in Unreal Engine? There's a lot of like
We'll never know.
just not sure. And so, it part of a deal with Nintendo where Nintendo demanded a exclusive game? Like we went through
Yeah.
all of these with this exercise, right? So going forward, what is then the game plan? Is it to continue to remake games, or is this to like was it a proof of concept for an Unreal Engine game that they would like to make?
Yeah,
Um,
and that's what it's such an odd situation. It's so hard for me to speculate. I can't be definite about. Like, the thing I would be more definite about is a new, Gundam, Dynasty Warriors game, just because apparently the new game didn't do too well, maybe, but that engine is
yeah,
great. I love, playing it, and I love the overworld that it does, and I love the mission style. If that was Gundam, I would be eating it up just because you could do the longer, bigger missions in the overworld, or you can go to the smaller, quicker ones and just
yeah,
battle either mobs or just other, like, especially how Gundam Dynasty Warriors does the stories, the characters,
so good.
getting the mobile suits, I that I feel like would be probably the most definite, um, next thing.
That would
Although
be
sometimes the Gundam Versus things come out of nowhere.
It's true, and I know that there's a couple of Gundam Versus titles that are currently, you know, in Japan that are unreleased here, and
Yeah.
obviously, there's people that pirate them and that kinda good stuff, but yeah, and I think that obviously the state of video games is in such a weird place right now that maybe the idea of doing remakes is kind of a safe bet, like, nobody knows necessarily where AI is gonna be in the next 2, 3 years, and, like, this whole
Yeah.
vibe coding, phenomenon where people are capable of making indie games much faster and at a smaller, personal expense than ever before. Now, the quality of said games ranges fairly wildly, so, take that with a grain of salt, but it would be naive to think that major studios are not investing heavily in that as well.
Oh, yeah.
And so the idea of coming out with a big budget AAA title or even a AA title for that matter, especially on a franchise that uh, has mixed results when it comes to new released games like Gundam does, um, I would be wary of, like, announcing anything too soon and committing to a new title.
Yeah. But the funny thing to me is PlayStation user base, just
Yeah,
because they didn't get this game. So it's almost like the other game would be Gundam Battle Operation 3.
and I hope that that's not the answer unless they're doing, like, a major overhaul to it, which would
Yeah,
be
that's what I mean.
yeah.
I feel like it would be, but do you think even if they had a major overhaul, and maybe this is where you were going with that, the core would still be the gotcha?
Oh, it would have to be.
Okay.
But
Because
my hope would be that it's geared more towards the style of gacha that, like, UC Engage and SD Eternal are, because I think that the gacha system in Eternal is more favorable than the gacha system in, GBO2.
or you're just lucky. Because although
That's
I
true.
haven't been playing as much as you, and you haven't been putting money into it. So, for all that you've been able to get, yeah, it's
Well, one of the and I think I mentioned this, like, when the game first dropped, is, like, I like that a lot of the mainline suits, the ones that are gonna be the most popular, are not drops for the most part. Like, obviously, you have the EX versions, which I think that would be a cool thing to bring to GBO2, is to have EX versions of, like, having multiple rarities of the same suit.
yeah,
Um, but not in the like, because I know that they have, like, the different levels, but, like, those that's all numbers, like, it's all minuscule.
right.
When
Yeah,
you look at, like, SD Eternal, the difference between the Zeta Gundam that you can develop and the Zeta Gundam EX, one transforms, the other one doesn't. One has a completely different move set from the other one. So it's not even like they're not even comparable. It's not just saying like, "Oh, well, this is the Zeta, but it's, like, on steroids." And so one of the things that I think kind of stinks about GBO2 is if there is a specific suit that you want that isn't it's not esoteric. You're gonna have a hard time getting it because you're just gonna be spamming drops, or you're just gonna have to wait until they give it to you for free. What's cool about Eternal is that there's this whole system on top of the gotcha that allows you to get some of the mainline suits where it's like,
yeah,
dude, all I want is, like, the Gundam G3, and I know that I can get it if I follow this path. I don't
completely
have to
agree.
worry about, like, "Oh, it's a banner suit this week, and I need to make sure that I have at least 1,000 tokens in order to get all the different levels." No, you just develop it, do it in game, and maybe there's gonna be a G3 Gundam that drops that's, like, a gotcha exclusive, but you still have the option to use the one that you can develop.
Dude, you're completely right. I feel like it would be so fun if I'm playing a Gundam Battle Operation 3 and I have a development tree where after I get done with some battles and some matches, I've got enough of whatever I need to then go in and develop my next one and then tune it. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
add a
like,
really cool
imagine if the
element.
hanger system was replaced with that.
Yeah.
Because
That
the hanger system is essentially just a numbers thing. It's like, okay, it's just a random
it's
crapshoot of,
just a
like,
place to
whether or
wait.
not I'm gonna
Yeah.
get this stat boost or not. It's like, no, instead, the hanger becomes like a development tree where it's like, "Oh, sweet, I got a Zaku. That means I can unlock the Goof at this point," and
Yeah, and I just like too if you're like, "Well, I kinda wanna use this mobile suit I don't have because I used it to upgrade. I'll just go back and then just work on the development tree and get it again." It's kinda fun because I
yeah,
would do that in Eternal to get the certain suits to fill out a tree or something. Yeah,
yeah. So I think that if GBO3 is on the menu, I hope that a revised gotcha system is as well.
yeah,
Well, before we close out for the night, I do want to get your thoughts on last night's episode of GQX. It was
yeah,
a big episode. So
yeah,
if you guys haven't seen it, sign out now and we'll catch you up tomorrow. But, spoilers ahead
yeah,
because obviously there was a lot of stuff. I don't know how you couldn't be spoiled on this. Like, just everybody on the internet's been posting about it.
yeah. First of all, I'm always forgetting little elements. Let's recap. What's something that happened? I completely forgot.
So we had Machu's escape
Yes,
from the Sodon. She made it to Earth. She encountered a particular legacy character that everyone's been
right.
speculating about, and
Okay.
then escaped from there as well. So, but there was a lot of callbacks in this show, not and I think some that people might have missed.
Oh, which one? Because I might have missed a few. What?
So this is one that was interesting because like there's a lot of callbacks to like CCA, right? Like spoiler alert, everybody. Lala Soon's in the episode,
Yeah,
and there's this conversation she has with the main character Machu about parallel universes, and in every parallel universe, she meets the young officer in red who saves her from her miserable life on Earth and takes her to space, enables her to be free, and in every version of this reality, he's killed by a white mobile suit.
right.
So
Right.
Char Aznable. So Lala Soon, um, she repeats that line from Char's counterattack, where she says that the officer in red is pure of heart, and that's like that. When Amuro's like, "Oh, I need you to forget about Char," and Lala goes, "Oh no, Char's pure of heart." Um, so there's like that, like that's like an obvious callback. What I
Yeah.
think was a callback to CCA that people might have missed was when Machu was in captivity on board the Sodon. There's a scene where she's like kind of by herself and she's waiting for interrogation. She's waiting for them to come get her. And she is floating because it's zero G, and she is in the exact same fetal pose as Chan in Char's counterattack when she's waiting for Char or waiting for Amuro to come out of his room. And so like Chan
Wow.
is like kind of floating outside of his room in the fetal position and has
Yeah.
Haro with her. Same thing. Machu's floating and has the Haro with her. I was like, that is such a throwaway callback that I
Well, that could mean that Amuro is the one getting her out of there.
It could be. Yeah, because there's the whole text message, debacle where
Yeah.
somebody helped Macho escape, um, and nobody knows who that is yet.
Yeah. No, okay, so yeah, things are coming back to me. The interesting thing was I feel like we all as a community assumed, guessed everything would lead to Lala and the Elmith, and it kinda did. You know what I mean? Like, but we still don't know exactly why or how, what the circumstances are. But
Right.
but I feel like it's interesting that when am I accurate in saying that we kind of guessed it right as a community? Like,
Yeah, because I mean, I think that when there was the first mention of the test subject,
yeah,
right? Everyone assumed like, "Oh, the test subject escaped. That must have been Lala," right?
yeah.
I think that's probably not the case anymore, like, because it doesn't sound like Lala escaped from Solomon, right?
No, I think.
Do you think she escaped
Oh,
from Solomon, got to Earth, and then
okay.
somehow ended up back in the captivity?
Yes. Okay, I see what you're talking about there. Yeah, because that's right. I didn't actually think of that following the actual reveal
Yeah.
because then it seems like okay, how would she have gotten back? But I
Yeah.
guess we saw that people don't die from the Zeknova.
No, they
So
don't.
whoever else was in there, whatever, people eventually got out and, um, So, but here's the other thing too. It almost seems like, and it seemed like one, multiple characters are referencing a multiverse exists.
Mhm.
Like they know this. There's like, hey, there's weapons from different multiverses. That's interesting, or different universe. There's it's kind of like what conspiracies with the US government getting weapons from another
Yeah.
dimension or something. So that is a very interesting layer on top of this, just for the fact that I am trying to figure out what are they trying to say with the story. But the thing that is now fascinating me is knowing the characters are acknowledging multiple universes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, is it gonna go further into a fourth wall style of, conclusion, where maybe it's talking to the audience about watching Evangelion, Gundam, blah, 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 or is it setting up, a universe of multiverses,
Well, I think it was you that brought it up on your live reaction that was like, "Is this necessarily tied to the 0079 that we know?
Oh, right, yeah, that too, yeah.
Or is it like is it a multiverse in and of itself that's being referenced here?"
Yeah, it's almost like this story is based upon multiple universes that are based around 0079, but not the core one that we.
Because I don't remember if you said it or if it was somebody on Twitter, but somebody was like, "Well, it can't be our 0079 because Shar isn't killed by a white mobile suit in but he is killed by the new Gundam,
Yeah,
which is a white
if
mobile
he's
suit, right? So,
killed.
like,
Yeah.
maybe the timeline of when he gets killed by Amuro, like and how do they describe it in, like, Doctor Who and other, like, time travel shows where it's, like, there's, like, some fixed events, like, some things just can't be
Right, exactly. Yeah, I forget there's a
undone.
term for that. I remember from the Time Machine
Yeah,
movie when they did that. Well, because then I wonder too if Lala can really see time in this fashion. Does she just see glimpses of things and then is just assuming? Because then I feel like she would kind of understand there's multiple universes. What is the why does it matter of events happening in certain universes? So that's that other element to the story that, you know.
and yeah, at the conclusion of the episode, one of the things that she says and this is one of those dramatic irony kind of moments because obviously Machu is trying to help her escape from her life in the brothel, uh, and she's like, "No, I can't go. Like, I have to wait for the man in red. Like, he's gonna come save me," because that's what he
Mhm.
does in every other universe. But we, the audience, know he's not coming because he was taken by the Zeknova in 0079. So she's stuck in this cycle of
But
waiting for
was he?
Shard. Or yeah, or was he?
Yeah.
But there's like this there what's the phrase I'm looking for? It's like this defeatism. Like she's resigned to this fate that she could have left, but she chose not to because she has faith that eventually he's going to show up. But we, the audience, know that like maybe he
Yeah.
will, maybe he won't. You don't know.
Yeah, that's why it's curious, like, what Lala is this? What is the mindset? Especially because in universe, we see her again in Unicorn,
Hmm.
um, with Shara, kind of be like, "All right, full frontal, enough shenanigans, let's." That's why I feel like, yeah, I don't know,
We also see her in Encounter ALC,
so
the
that I don't know too much of, except that it was like the, Char's counterattack era of the
yeah,
new
yeah.
Gundam and the Sazabi.
Uh, it was like two people at a mall. And maybe this is tied into it because it's like, I didn't think about this, but the whole storyline behind the Encounter ALC was
Mhm.
two people at a mall are they see the Zazabi and the new Gundam statues, and it awakens something inside of them that like um ignites this old rivalry between Amuro and Char. And Lala is like this TikTok dancer influencer. What if they triggered a Zeknova at that mall? Like they are part of the GQX universe. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. Yeah, if it's connected, because I wonder what are they doing with this?
who knows?
Yeah. But
But yeah, any thoughts, any predictions about where we're going next after we've seen the Elmith has been uh
dude, I have no idea except I think we're gonna see Char.
We have to
Um,
at some point, right?
yeah, and maybe Amuro. Yeah, I feel like they're leading up to this being a Char and Amuro rivalry at the end, or fight at the end.
It would be
Oh,
interesting.
there was that EVA Unit 2 or the Fred
Yeah,
G
the
Fred,
Fred.
it had the Sazabi
And
V
we
fin.
had Sayla named, but we haven't seen
Oh,
Sayla
yeah.
yet, so there's always the potential that she could make an arrival as well. Like you said, the people that experience the Zeknova clearly don't, um,
Die. Yeah.
die. Maybe they just get teleported to one of their alternate selves.
Oh, something to think about. Let's look at characters and how different they are afterwards.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I wonder if
Because
there's, like, any, that
because
could explain Char's heel turn in CCA is that he actually got swapped with the GQX Char.
no, don't worry. I explain it in a video that comes out next Monday.
Oh, there you go.
It's about Double Zeta, so.
Well, I think that that's a perfect note to end on. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this chat. Like I said, not a ton of interesting announcements to share, but obviously a very awesome episode of GQucks, and
Yeah.
I really do. And maybe it's just exposure therapy where I'm playing so much G Eternal that I'm loving it, but I cannot
Wow,
recommend this game enough to people.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's a great recommendation. I trust you 100%.
Thank you. Your approval is everything to me. That's the success of the show right here. But no, thank you, Adam. Thank you guys in the
Yeah.
chat. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will catch you tomorrow on Gundam Explained.
Yep.
Cheers,
See you
everybody.
all.